Another day of Democrat meltdowns, this time surrounding the White House ballroom. Yes, you heard me right, folks. The left is losing it over construction that just began on the East Wing. I'll tell you everything you need to know about this. Sam Mirejovsky here. Good to be with you. Happy Tuesday. Well, listen, I mean, it's generally considered a good thing when a president comes to office and says, I'm going to use my money and donor money to contribute a major improvement to the United States, specifically here to the White House. So it's, of course, Trump is a king, so the left is spending it all sorts of ways. I'll go through those reactions in a minute. But first, let me tell you everything you need to know about this. By the way, email here if you'd like to reach me on the program, sam@whatsrightshow.com. Sam, that's me, at whatsrightshow.com. And of course, on X, formerly known as Twitter, at whatsrightsam. So these pictures that are coming out, this is how it all started. The photographs getting released, taken from, I presume, the Treasury building. Because the White House is flanked, if you know the areas, but flanked by two very large buildings that look down onto the White House grounds. One on the east side is the Treasury building. On the west side is a giant building, the Eisenhower Executive Office building, where spillover folks from the West Wing are housed. Now, people at the Treasury were taking photos and showed basically demo occurring on the outer perimeter of the East Wing. Now, what's in the East Wing? What is it? What is it used for? And why is this not as big of a deal as the hand-wringers are making it seem? Well, number one, the East Wing was added relatively late in 1902 by Teddy Roosevelt. So it's... it just, I mean, and then it was a major remodel, I think, in 1942 by Franklin Roosevelt. And, there's the East Room is in the East Wing. That's the current ballroom, and it's tiny. I don't know if you've had a chance to go to the Nixon Library in Orange County, but the Nixon Library has an exact 2-scale replica of the East Wing. And many people have been to that room if you haven't been to the White House, and it's not a huge room. If you're the president and you are the leader of the free world and you're putting together a large event, a state event, the White House has had to, up until this point, when they have more people than can fit in the East Room, they actually have to build a tent on the lawn. And it's a big mess because, tents, of course, in the winter aren't ideal, or when it's raining aren't ideal. And it's, guests have to walk outside from the White House building to the tent. And so Trump says, look, we got to do this. And by the way, Trump has been fixated on this for a long time. Bet you didn't know this. No one's talking about it. Trump actually offered Obama, when Obama was president, early in his first term, Trump made the offer to build him, the American people, by extension, a ballroom on the White House grounds. And he also offered to pay for it. And Obama turned the offer down. Anyway, Trump's been fixated on this for a long time, since precedes his presidency, his first term or second. So anyway, this is what it is. Now, I'm looking at the photos. I'm familiar with the building, so I can just tell you that these are some outer offices and outer rooms. One is a receiving area for White House guests. So if you had visited the White House, there's a kind of a vestibule of sorts that you would enter through. That's been torn down to form the connection to what will be the ballroom. And the ballroom will be essentially, next to and adjacent to, built onto the East Wing, an expanded East Wing. And the ballroom will have a view of basically the South Portico, the iconic, call it the front. It's really the back end of the White House is where the Marine One helicopters land, and it faces south toward the Washington Memorial. So anyway, this is what it is. I mean, I think it's going to be beautiful. I'm looking at photos. I have good taste. Is it a little too gold for my liking? Yes, because it's Donald Trump. Will it be built well? Absolutely. And I have a story about that incidentally. You know, Trump, before he became president in 2017, after the 2016 election, before that happened, he was building and developing a hotel in Washington, D.C. I don't know if you remember this, but building the Trump Hotel, which is 2 blocks from the White House. And the building, it's an old post office building. It's a historic building in Washington, and it belongs to the federal government. So the Trump organization, well before any campaign or hint of even him running, made a deal with the then Obama administration to lease. It was a very long lease. Forget what the term was, but, you know, call it 50, 60, 70 years. Wait, it was a long lease. Bought this lease and then went in and, well, some would say gutted. They took this beautiful historic building that was in a pretty state of disrepair and made it absolutely stunning. Last week when I was in D.C., I stayed at the hotel. It is no longer the Trump. It is now the Waldorf Astoria. But it's one of my favorite places to stay, really, in Washington. Trump's attention to detail, like when they build something, when the Trump org builds something, it's really him, because it's his eye and it's his fastidiousness. When he builds something, it's just absolutely a 10 out of 10 in terms of quality, in terms of thoughtfulness and purposefulness. And the reason the hotel, even now that it's no longer a Trump property, is so successful is because of the gathering spaces, the ballroom, and other public facilities in the building that allow for big gatherings, conferences, etc. When I was there, all the folks from the IMF were in town. That's where they were staying, and they were holding all the major events there. Not by accident. I think it's the purposefulness of the design. So I'm just, I don't know. I am someone who appreciates and loves history. I don't think, ironically, given that I'm here in Las Vegas, I don't think we should just keep tearing things down and building new. It's not my thing. But when it comes to the White House, I mean, there's a long history, a renovation history that goes back, 100 years. I mean, you think, right? I mean, during Truman, a lot of people, this is another thing people don't know. The current White House, the main building of the White House, so the iconic center part of the building, the residence and the state floors of the White House were completely gutted under President Truman. Because in 1948, Truman becomes president, realizes that the structure of the White House basically deteriorating, like it's coming apart. And so they went in and they decided, what we're going to do is carefully remove the interior fixtures of every room, every fireplace, every molding, every, tapestry, whatever it was, all fabrics, woods, stones, carefully removed everything from those critical historic rooms and essentially stored them for a period of time and gutted the entire White House. There are photos, there's historic photos from 1948, 49. Truman's living across the street at Blair House, and you see there's nothing there. The White House walls are standing, just the 4 walls with steel beams holding them up so they don't collapse on themselves, and windows are removed. Everything is gone. The White House, as it stands today, the core historic building, is new as far as, its 233-year history is concerned. So that was all completed in 1952. And yet Truman lived across the street, and it was his family. So, most of that term was spent not living in the White House. Kennedy did a major renovation. Nixon, what did Nixon do? He built a bowling alley So that's and then they covered the pool. They covered the pool for the White House press briefing room. Ford put a pool back in, I think, somewhere on the South Lawn. Jimmy Carter, remember he put in the solar panels, so he had that going for him. Reagan quickly removed those. Anyway, the point is, renovations have happened. This one is big, and I think it pisses the left off that they will always have something there in D.C. to remind them of Donaldus Maximus. They will always have that part of the White House that just goes, that's the Trump ballroom. And they're angst-ridden about this to the point of some, once serious people writing online that as soon as Trump leaves office, the ballroom ought to be demolished. They hate Trump so much that they would be willing to demo a $200 million structure just out of spite. That's how crazy these people are. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840 KXNT, the What's Right show, brought to you by Sam & Ash Injury Law, because you deserve what's right.
I'm the best.
Personal injury law has been the same for a long time.
The best.
Big egos, greed, and sleazy schemes. We've had enough. Welcome to Sam & Ash, the new standard for personal injury law, where things are done the right way, because you deserve a team that delivers real support and results. When you have both, your whole world can change. Sam & Ash Injury Law, because you deserve what's right.
All right, folks, you're listening to the What's Right show, your place for common sense, conservatism, Monday through Friday, right here on the What's Right Media Network. Now, this ballroom stuff, it's just one of the latest outrage opportunities that the Democrats have taken to beat Trump up, and I'm bemused by it. I think that's the right word. I think it's funny. Now, remember Michelle Obama put a garden in the White House? People were like, wow, what are you doing? I know, listen, a whole slew of presidents have made changes to the White House grounds over the years. I detailed some of them. The big one, if you're just joining us, of course, is Harry Truman gutted the place. The original White House, as built, post-fire, okay, gone. Yeah, between 1948 and 1952, basically the entire innards of the White House were gutted and rebuilt using steel, concrete, and other modern materials. Had to be done. At the end of the day, this has to function as a residence and a place of safety, too, for the president. Now, the East Room, right, this is the ballroom, talking about this, right, $250 million. I've heard two amounts, but regardless, no public funds being used for it. Trump is donating some money, and then some of his donors, friends of the president, are chipping in money for this. And people are pissed off about that, too. It's almost as if Trump was using public funds. They'd be screaming about the public funds being used. If Trump's using private money, they're mad about that because obviously this money is something that they should tax the hell out of. It's not your money. It's their money. Well, I'm not making this up. I mean, just listen to Sarah Haynes today talking to Sonny Hostin about the ballroom. This is on The View, my favorite program. And Haynes goes, well, this is what Haynes says. She opens this up saying people are struggling to eat. They're struggling to eat, and Trump is doing this obscene thing, and they're spending all this money on it.
People are struggling to eat, and this was like a wealthy ballroom paid for by wealthy people for wealthy people to come and dance in a ballroom. And I know this was private funds, but I can't help but imagine how far $250 million could go for families who can't put food on the table.
Right? It's that part. That's what struck me. The $50 million project. It's going to be tacky and gaudy. You know that. They're losing their health
to
care.
give tax breaks to multimillionaires
and to billionaires who probably are some of the private donors for this tacky, gaudy, nasty ballroom. And I think for me, Whoopi, the first thing that came to mind was that this is a metaphor for what's going on in our country. He is tearing down the house. He is tearing down the people's house. He's an annihilist. And I think, he does seem to think that it's his house, that he is a king.
You don't own it.
I mean, just over the weekend, you have 7 million people telling him that's not your house. You are not a king.
Okay. I don't loathe, well, in my top 3 loathings of sort of standard things that libs say, I had to think about this because this used to be my top loathing. Now they want to kill us. So I've replaced this. Now, wishing death on me, on Charlie Kirk, on you, on your kids. Like that now is a higher level of despicability. But the second one that used to be the top one for me always was when libs will say, it's a communist talking point. Oh, but they're spent. Oh my, did you see how much Bob spent on his car? Do you think, there are people that are starving in Ethiopia right now. And he just spent $200,000 on a car. And whenever anybody brings this up, and I remember I witnessed this growing up as a kid, right? Because somebody on the street growing up in Irvine, California, somebody on the street would demo their house and start remodeling a beautiful house, and certain neighbors who honestly were just envious and couldn't remodel their homes because they didn't have the means. Okay, that's fine. But they would go and say, it's ridiculous. They're spending all this money on with what's going on right now with the economy and everybody else, right? And I would hear this as a 13, 14-year-old, like hives. What are you saying? You're telling Bob with the $200,000 car, neighbor, one of my neighbors, basically telling him it's not his money. It's not his money to spend, which is completely ridiculous. It is your money. You made it if you didn't steal it, right? You made it legitimately. You paid taxes. It's your money. You don't have to go and, give more of it to the government that already, spends it, wastefully. Actually, better to just directly inject it into a project, a specific project that is for the betterment of the American public, which we benefit from having a beautiful White House where our president, whether it's Trump now or maybe, gosh forbid, Gavin Newsom in the future, can entertain world visitors, international guests that come to the country and, have a place to hold parties. I don't know. Gavin Newsom's one of the people who said, I believe he has, that this, if he, this needs to get torn down, sort of implying, he doesn't say when I become president or if I become president, he implies that it should be razed to the ground and restored to how it once was. But the envy argument, right? The just, you don't have your money. It's not your money. How dare Trump spend his money? People are missing their health insurance payments. And I want to tell these broads, like, whose fault is that? Why don't they have Chuck Schumer on? He can explain why Senate Democrats are voting against the continuing resolution. So, all right, there it is. Now, remember they've said something about it's not your house. It's not your house. Whoopi Goldberg, who is really one of the great living philosophers of our time, added this.
That is not your building.
Correct.
You don't own that building. That would be like me going over to Trump Tower and saying I'm going to build a disco.
What? It's like, okay, Trump Tower is literally private property. And she has no ownership or affiliation whatsoever with any of that. Now, the White House, who is in charge of the executive branch? Who's in charge of the White House? The Park Service, right? National Park. It's a government building. It is literally, Trump is the president in charge of it. These people are nuts. All right. Oh, speaking of nuts, Karine Jean-Pierre is back from the dead. Oh, boy. Welcome, friends. The What's Right show is on. 702-820-1234. What is that number to? That's the only number you need if you get into an accident, you get injured, you get hurt, and you want to have the bestest, can I say that? Bestest representation. Now, what does that mean? What does that entail? A lot of times, you get hurt and you get medical bills, right? I talk about this all the time. For Sam and Ash injury law, this is something that is a huge pro tip. You get hurt, you get medical bills, right? And you're going to have to pay for them. Like, they oftentimes don't get covered even by health insurance. And they certainly don't get automatically covered by, if there's auto insurance involved or anything like that. So, what happens? They start to stack up and they may well be greater than whatever available insurance the driver had that hit you. With a firm like Sam and Ash Injury Law, I'll tell you straight up, this is what we do. We take bills, we reduce them down, and we make sure that you actually get money in your pocket. And as a bonus, you don't owe anything at the end of the case. I've seen people who go at it alone or have a bad law firm. They basically end up having to, file BK. They have $100,000 in medical bills they can't pay for. So don't have that happen to you. Sam and Ash Injury Law, the only firm to trust for your injury case. We do it right because you deserve what's right. 702-820-1234. Sam and Ash Injury Law. Offices in California and Nevada. All right, folks. Karine Jean-Pierre, did you see this? Robbie, did you, before I sent this all to you that it was popping up in my feed, had you seen these clips of KJP? Here's folks, refresher course. Karine Jean-Pierre, a.k.a. Mop Top. She had curly hair, she was up there every day talking to the media, spinning tales about Biden. She was his press secretary. And later, by the way, she became she became a senior advisor to the president. So Karine Jean-Pierre took over for Jen Psaki. And when Jen Psaki left, of course, got a pretty cushy gig over at MSNBC. And Karine Jean-Pierre, filled it. It was terrible. She's a complete idiot. I mean, I get it. She had to lie for Biden, and lying for Biden is a tough job. And she always had her binder, right? She has this giant binder. She'll, we'll have to, get back to you on this and that, and flipping through the pages. Horrible stuff. Anyway, she did not score a gig working for MSNBC or any other media outlet. I looked this up, Robbie, because she looks terrible. I'm just going to start there. She looks awful. And I thought, what happened to her? I didn't recognize her. That's how bad she looks. So her hair is different, which, I don't know what to make of that. Typically, when a woman radically changes her hair, something's up. But Karine Jean-Pierre, her hair's all straight now, and she looks, I don't know, something's going on. So I had to look up, is she working anywhere? Because I haven't seen her basically pop up since Biden left the White House. And from what I see, she has not been employed. She's been working on her memoir. So she's written a book. And the book is, I think, number 3,000 on the Amazon bestseller. I was like, it's not doing well. So she has to come out to promote it. Well, the promotional tour isn't going well either. And she's not even getting safe quarter from fellow Democrats. And one of the most absurd things that Karine Jean-Pierre is trying to do here is, she's trying to gloss over the fact that that Biden wasn't talking to the media and that he was lost and gone. And she's talking to this was yesterday, talking to Gayle King on CBS, together with Tony DeCopel, Nate Burleson, Karine Jean-Pierre. Well, Gayle King asked her basically, "You didn't see a decline, did you? You didn't see any decline." Now, this is how the
You're
question
a
went.
member of the inner circle, and you never saw the decline. And after that, I wrote, how?
Yeah.
You even write, Karine, that you were on the plane with him going to the debate, and you didn't see anything.
Well, when
So
we were
hard
when we
to
were on the Air
understand.
Force One going to the debate, you got to remember his campaign people were on the team, his family was on the team. I actually was one of those rare trips that I didn't really see him until after the debate, even though I was on the plane. So really, I want everybody to know that I take this question incredibly seriously. I do. I was his White House press secretary, which means I had a role that saw him practically every day and traveled with him
And you saw nothing.
for more than 95%. We've always said, we're not going to say, oh, he didn't age. He aged. And he poked fun at it. We always owned up. And with age comes what happens when you get older.
Which is?
But when we talk about the mental acuity, and again, I take this very, very seriously.
Yeah.
I never saw anyone who wasn't there. I saw someone who was always engaged. I saw someone who understood policy, pushed us on the policy, and also understood history.
I'm telling you right now, I'm just saying it flat out, folks. They are, all of them that were close to Biden. I think that's the only truthful part of it is, I mean, she was, part of the core team there in the White House. I am convinced they are all absolutely freaking out about criminal liability, that they ran the government of the United States on a fraud. Starting with the premise that Biden was not okay, starting with acknowledging that what we saw, that the decline, whatever you want to call it, the decline existed in 2020 when he was running for office, and that it rapidly accelerated, that it wasn't just about the debate in June of 24 when he came apart and started staring off into space, that there were moments where the real, gone, absolutely not there Joe Biden was allowed to be in public. For example, I'll just bring it up. Remember the Maui fires? Remember when he flew across the country and to Hawaii on Air Force One? He probably slept the whole way, right? Air Force One, comfortable. The president has his own suite. He has 2 beds in there. He has a shower. Doctor travels with him. It's not rough, okay? But you are crossing, 6 time zones. I get it, right? You do it on United, you do it on Southwest, it's going to take a little bit of that of you, right? So he shows up at the Maui fire at that luncheon, where they put a lei on him and he's sitting there. Guy looks like he's been embalmed, but with his mouth open. It was not good. Objectively, he looked gone. So there are moments like that. And there's certainly a lot that we did not see because we, being the public, we were shielded. He was protected. They were all protecting him and hiding him so that they could continue running their agenda using a non-compos mentis president. And there is criminal liability for that. It is the basis and would be the basis for a criminal filing. We'll see if it happens. I tend to believe that something will come of it. But regardless, you can hear it in her voice. She is panicking about it. The problem is that the Democrats in the media, the chatterati, okay, the people that are, the podcasters and the media gurus and whatever, they're no longer invested in the myth that Joe Biden's okay the way that they were, let's say, in 2024 when he was still running for re-election. Because to all of these people, it was, either support Biden and support the great lie that there's nothing to see here, folks, or the third rail, instant death, Donald J. Trump. So these were people who, although now they have, completely reversed, turned their coats inside out, like Jake Tapper, right? Tapper lied and covered up. And then when Biden's out of the race, he's like, oh boy, did they lie to us. And oh my gosh, I'm now going to be the biggest truth teller on my side of the aisle. What a load of crap, right? And that's why, Robbie, I got to tell you, this was so great with Tim Miller. Tim Miller on the Bulwark podcast. Tim Miller is a left-wing guy. Well, let me just play this. And you just getting called out by your own people is stinging. It's much harder to lie, in other words. It's much harder to lie without the help of the media, okay? Which is what Karine Jean-Pierre was used to having. It was only Fox News that was challenging her in the press briefing room.
We did have legislative wins.
Sure,
and
but he didn't talk about them that well, though. He couldn't talk about them. He wasn't campaigning.
No. Wait. First of all, he did talk about them. Whether it broke through or not, he did. Tim, he did talk about.
I mean, he talked way less to the press than Donald Trump does. Way less. And he wasn't out there at all. He wasn't good off the cuff. He wasn't doing press conferences. Let's just be real. Like, he didn't do paid events.
Tim, that's not true. Tim, you're conflating all of it. That's what you're doing. No, you're telling me he didn't talk well about it. Then you're telling me he didn't talk at all.
He didn't do either. He didn't talk very often, and when he did, it wasn't very good. He sounded very old.
Maybe you weren't paying attention to what we were doing at the White House. But
I paid attention. I'm with you on the policies. I'm talking about his performance.
The president spoke to the American people a couple times a week. He traveled and did domestic travel and talked directly to the American people.
No, that's not how it went. Like, that's objectively not true. I mean, he traveled. You think you can actually claim that Donald Trump and Biden basically are communicating with the media the same? I mean, there are figures, and sorry, I didn't go full autism today, so I don't have exactly the numbers, but there are people have gone through minute by minute. Robbie, I'm going to put you on this. Minute by minute, I mean, because these are all public events. So somebody out there has counted up the amount of minutes total that Donald Trump has so far in his presidency from January till now spent talking to the media, answering questions directly to the media. He does it every time he's getting on board Air Force One, on Air Force One, getting off of Air Force One, in the Oval Office. I mean, he's talking to the press every day. He loves debating the press. Biden, they were shuffling him around, very carefully curated, and he didn't answer very. I'm telling you, you look at the data, there are numbers on this. I see Robbie furiously typing there in the other room. Yeah, well, we'll get to this after the break, but my point is, you can't rewrite history. And my other point to it is, Karine Jean-Pierre's running into problems now precisely because the media is no longer covering for Biden, because Trump's already sort of the cat's out of the bag. And that is ultimately one of Trump's biggest wins, is he broke the media. He broke them. He broke the mainstream media's grip on the country, on the power to define what's true and what's not true. The government shutdown is the latest example of the incredible progress we Republicans have made, simply because the media, the big three and the top cable shows, do not control the narrative anymore. And I could argue that, aside from Trump being the belligerent, hard-nosed guy that he is, that the biggest reason for why they lost this standing, this monopoly, is because they went so far into the lies, into the lying for Joe Biden and protecting Joe Biden, just the way Karine Jean-Pierre continues to do now, which she has to do, to keep her money out of jail. Sam Mirejovsky, here on the What's Right show on the What's Right Media Network. Back in a moment. What an absolutely glorious day. Beautiful day here in Las Vegas, Nevada. Wherever you are listening to this program, please know you should probably be in Las Vegas, okay? It's perfect here. Sam Mirejovsky, Nevada's favorite recovering Californian, behind the What's Right microphone. I hope everybody is having a great day. I am drinking my coffee. I think this is like my fourth coffee today, Robbie, so I'm tuned up. Let me put it that way. I'm doing great. Okay. Well, you didn't find the statistics. I guarantee you they're out there, Robbie. Somebody who is on the spectrum has figured this out, has done the math exactly down to the minute, comparing how much time Trump has spent in front of the press versus Joe Biden. But you did find me something here which is helpful and illustrative, I think, of what we all understand to be true. That in the first 3 months of this term, President Trump answered nearly 100 questions from the press, which represents a nearly 20-time increase over the number of questions answered by President Biden during the same setting in his term in office. Oh, no, in entire 4 years. That's even better. That's it. Robbie's like blowing me up here. I misunderstood when you told me this, Robbie. Yes. Okay, 20 times over Biden's entire term. And Karine Jean-Pierre says to the Bulwark podcast with a straight face, oh, no, they're the same. They're the same. Trump and Biden, they communicate with the media. Biden's did a great job. He was totally fine. Nothing to see here, folks. My point is twofold. One, she has to continue the lie because she has liability. Her liability, the criminal liability, rests almost entirely on the consciousness of guilt. Karine Jean-Pierre has talked to her lawyer. Her lawyer, guarantee you this, I'm putting on my lawyer hat. I'm just explaining to you how this works behind the scenes. Pay attention. You're not going to learn this on Fox. Everybody that was close to in the working besides Biden White House is under a criminal investigation right now, currently by the DOJ. Okay, I don't have a confirmation of it, but I'm telling you I would bet my house on it. 2, every one of those people, being in DC, being connected, being hopefully not completely idiotic, have hired or spoken to a lawyer. And there's plenty of lawyers in DC who are getting ready to make some coin in the coming 12 months. Promise you that. If they meet with a lawyer who does this kind of work, the lawyer is going to tell Miss Karine Jean-Pierre or whoever, they're going to say, whatever you do, number one, you can never admit even an iota of regret or doubt in Biden's ability. As far as you're concerned, I can see the conversation happening right now. I swear. The lawyer's like pointing a finger at Karine Jean-Pierre going, as far as you're concerned, you did not ever under any circumstances witness any diminished capacity. And Karine Jean-Pierre, mop top, she's sitting there, putting the information in her binder. Okay, I got it. And that's why you've got even liberals now, because Jake Tapper's entered the fray, written a book about it, a cover up, and we were all misled. So they've now, the media that was previously helping her has jumped on the bandwagon. But none of these people can admit, in fact, now they look even sillier because they no longer have support from their friends in the media. But they cannot deviate course because their money will burn if they do. Now, you're probably thinking, well, Sam, but the evidence will show. The critical issue in these cases, pretty much under every, I've looked at it, there's different federal charges that could be brought. But the idea behind it requires mens rea, consciousness of guilt. They need to, essentially to make the case, the DOJ would have to prove in court that Karine Jean-Pierre knew in the moment, right, that there was this diminished capacity. And if she comes out and goes, you know what, you got Jake Tapper, you're right, guy, I blew it. I was covering for him. Mea culpa. She's donezo from a legal, like, criminal liability standpoint. Okay, I'm just telling you now. You know something that most people won't tell you because they'll just fixate on the hilariousness of this whole thing. Well, Tapper entered the fray. We're up against another break. This, folks, is the challenge with live radio. Every time I start developing a thought, another obscene prophet timeout comes in and whacks me upside the head. Sam Mirejovsky here on the What's Right Media Network. Don't go anywhere. Another hour of this coming up next. Greetings and welcome to the What's Right Show, your favorite cisgender radio host. That's me, Sam Mirejovsky, behind the What's Right microphone, Sam at whatsrightshow.com, at What's Right Sam on X, formerly known as Twitter. Follow me there. I post stuff occasionally. And by occasionally, sometimes I go into a flurry of activity like I did today. Over the ballroom. I know I'm not coming back to it. Just wanted to mention here that Hillary Clinton chimed in on the issue, Trump building, starting yesterday, construction of a new East Wing ballroom, 90,000 square feet addition to the White House. To connect it to the White House, they had to knock down a portion of vestibule on the east side of the East Wing opposite the Treasury building. And everybody is wigging out. Okay? Everybody is just, what would we have said in the 90s, Robbie? Having a cow. Now, Hillary's having a cow. She posted something that made me laugh out loud. Where do I have it? I got it here. Okay. She took I actually don't know if this is the New York Times or the Washington Post, but she took a headline, White House begins demolishing East Wing facade to build Trump's ballroom. It literally says the facade. It doesn't say the East Wing. It just says the facade. It's a few rooms. All right. And Hillary Clinton tweeted this out, put a post on X. It's not his house. It's your house. And he's destroying it. I got a little feisty. Now, Hillary Clinton shut down her comments. Like, she doesn't let people comment on her posts because those don't go well. So I retweeted it, and my comment on this was, lady, you stole $28,000 of furniture when you left the White House, hightailing it back to Arkansas. Like, I'd sit this out. Like, nobody wants to hear from Hillary on this. I mean, Hillary Clinton would have taken the White House with her back to Arkansas if she would have been able. So, yeah. And destroying it. I mean, it's not. She is so mad she's not president, folks. I tell you, every day that Hillary Clinton wakes up and sees Trump's face, she is filled with white hot rage. I think Bill Clinton has been contemplating death for the last 20 years just to get away from her. Can you imagine Hillary in a mood? Certainly in the last 10. Okay. Okay, I can't believe I have to address this. I'm going to talk about it. I'm going to talk about Diddy. TMZ stands by their story that they released late yesterday that was sourced. This was a 6 o'clock hour time. They claim that their story is accurate in spite of the Trump administration denying it vehemently. The TMZ story, the original story, says that Trump is considering commuting Diddy's sentence as early as this week. Now, I tend to deal with things once they happen and then address it. I think this is a terrible idea. I know Trump knows him, okay? And I don't know. If you were president and somebody you knew was in prison and you know, I don't know. I think it's a terrible idea for Trump to let him out. First off, and I've spoken a lot about this, not so much on this show, but I've done a lot of TV interviews about this with my lawyer hat, about the charges, about the case. What they ultimately got Diddy on was kind of a BS charge, okay, the Mann Act. But the problem I have with Diddy is that he's a bad guy. He beats his girlfriend, wife, whatever they were at the time. I've seen the video. Nobody's disputing the authenticity of the video. I do not see it. I don't see her attacking him. What I saw there was an extreme form of spousal domestic abuse. So I'm of the belief, when you're a bad person and you skate on certain charges and then get convicted and sentenced on a technicality, I seem to think, you got your just desserts. You got what was coming to you. It's called karma. B-I-T-C, Well, technicality, why am I calling? Well, okay. Here's my issue with the Mann Act violation, right? This is the transporting women for sex over state lines, right? I tend to be the guy who goes, hey, these are adults. Children, completely different, right? But adults, like these were people that took money to participate in Diddy's weird sexual stuff he had going on. I don't know. Okay, I mean, prostitution. Okay, so prostitution charge. But convicting the guy who paid somebody where it was two adults engaged in a commercial transaction, I think that's just, it doesn't get me all bent out of shape. And my problem is that the extension to this, if you recall the Me Too movement, and I had a lot to say when that was in full force and at fever pitch, my criticism of the Me Too movement fundamentally was I thought feminism had brought us to the stage, to the place where we accepted that women had agency and that women are just as strong as men. And that, if a woman says no, that's it. Anything beyond that is rape. Agreed, right? But if a woman says, oh, yes, Harvey Weinstein, yes, I'll meet you in your hotel room. Yes, and then later regrets it and goes, well, I did say yes, but he was rich and powerful. He was older. His name was P. Diddy, Harvey Weinstein, whoever. Now, I'm Sam Mirejovsky. I don't want to be, I think Harvey Weinstein is a disgusting troll, okay? I'm not a Harvey Weinstein fan. I'm not a Diddy fan. I'm just, this is a struggle with having a brain and being consistent in your opinions, right? So that's my thing, right? I no is no. But if it's a yes, okay, yeah, I'll take the money. These people took the money. They showed up in buses in front of Diddy's house, and they each collected whatever it was, $1,000, $2,000, whatever, plus airfare. And yeah, I mean, this to me is just, yeah. But it couldn't happen to a nicer person. That's my point, and why Trump should stay out of it. I hope he's listening. Oh, gosh. Speaking of Jake Tapper, I brought him up with the Karine Jean-Pierre thing. Jake Tapper is now banging on about Trump being not well in the head. This is where it's and I was as predictable of a play as you could imagine. First, Tapper comes out and he says, we were all misled. Me and all my friends in the media, we were misled. The Biden White House, they lied to us, those horrible people. We had no idea. We took them at their word that Biden was perfectly fine. And it's like all of us here who could see what was happening are just, laughing about it and also upset because it's such an obvious lie. But where was this headed? It was always headed as a means by which they could build up credibility to then criticize Donald Trump's cogent status, mental status. Having finished with their cleansing procedure To strip the shame of covering for Joe Biden's significant decline and diminished state, they are now out criticizing Trump. Listen to Jake Tapper yesterday talk about this.
The press corps, and I'm certainly including myself, needs to worry less about politeness when it comes to these health issues, and needs to be even more aggressive when it comes to demanding transparency on health issues when it comes to the president. President Trump, while he appears healthy, he has not been transparent about his health records. And I think that that's something that the American people have a right to.
Yeah. Newsom, what was this, a few days ago? Said something significant. I was similar to this, right? Yeah, Newsom, they're all talking about it. Well, I'm telling you, this is what they're gonna be. Prepare yourselves. You're going to hear a lot more of this in the coming weeks and months.
And increasingly, this president appears unhinged, unmoored by reality and facts. Seems listless. He seems, dare I say, in decline, cognitively, and dare I say, forgive me, perhaps unfair, physically. And these are just rantings of someone that needs an intervention, needs some help, needs to be stabilized.
I just got back from D.C. The only people that need stabilizing are the Democrats. My gosh. That's any intervention that we can give the Democrats right now to save themselves from themselves, I think is... well, I'm not going to do it, of course. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840 KXNT. Back in a moment.
The Sam & Ash team, they wanted me to have the best care. They had my interests at heart. I have an enormous amount of gratitude. I cannot say enough thank you.
The House Judiciary Committee just releasing information, a press release, where they have referred John Brennan, one of my favorite people, to the Department of Justice for criminal prosecution. Sam Mirejovsky here behind the What's Right microphone. Greetings, friends. Back to the program here, full force. So what is this all about? The criminal referral... here's the assertions, right? Falsely denying that the CIA relied on the discredited Steele dossier in drafting the post-2016 election intelligence community assessment. And also, Brennan falsely testifying when he told the committee that the CIA opposed, including the Steele dossier in the intelligence community assessment, the ICA is what it's called. So this just... these are very straightforward, would be very straightforward charges. What Brennan said under oath is a matter of record. It's transcribed. It's, it's in the congressional record, right? This is there. Not to mention it's on video. And if it can be proven that he knew at the time that what he was saying was in fact false, they've got him dead to rights. I also, Robbie, I saw this too. That's a New York Times just put out a piece. Let's see, who did this one? Danny Hakim and Richard Fosse, I think is how you pronounce that. Justice Department scrutinizes a trip Fani Willis took to the Bahamas. Bahama Mama Fani Willis, remember she liked to travel with her main squeeze, the bought and paid for auxiliary prosecutor in Fulton County, Georgia, Mr. Nathan Wade. I'm just getting this on the radar. Oh, so this was already yesterday. I see, Robbie. This is, I guess it just didn't make my stack. Okay. Yeah, so what is this about? Fulton County, right? Right, she took the Bahamas trip with some colleagues last November after she was reelected to a second term. Her office said that the trip was for a leadership training session and that campaign funds covered the cost. But apparently there's some, I see, there's a Georgia law violation here, potentially. Okay, so they're looking at it. Fani Willis has been awfully quiet, too. Have you noticed how all these people who were front and center in front of the cameras, who were screaming about the justice that they intended to mete out to candidate, former President Trump, now are all hiding? Have you heard anything from Jack Smith? Have you heard any? No, I know, look, Letitia James is out there because now she's got to keep up the pretense that she's been wrongly charged. And then, of course, you got Comey out there. He's putting, seashells on the sand and putting together videos where he's saying that in Taylor Swift he trusts. But yeah, I saw that he's Comey is trying to get out of the indictment, and he's got a friendly judge. So it could happen. You got to prepare yourself. You have no idea how deeply entrenched enemy agents, and including the judges, frankly, in D.C. I mean, and Virginia. These judges do not care about the law. It is a zero-sum political game. And an enemy of my enemy is my friend. It doesn't matter how they feel about Comey. It doesn't matter if they know each other or not. Comey is a sworn enemy of Donald J. Trump. Thus, these judges have no other way to act than to try to help him. So we'll see, okay, if that indictment stands. Now, of course, it can get kicked out and it can get refiled, and there's a bunch of things that can happen. But just be prepared for a roller coaster here, folks. And it's not going to go immediately to trial. That's another thing. So there's going to be a lot of procedural fights that go between now and a trial date, which I don't think has been even set yet. So not a tip. That's not typical. I mean, it's not atypical. Excuse me. So, okay. Here's and I mentioned this yesterday in the context of George Santos. My fundamental problem with with if we're going to talk about justice and meting out justice and a fairness under the law, I have no problem. I have zero problems. You break the law, you pay the price. My issue with what the Democrats have done with the country is that they have turned prosecution into a political weapon. There's a reason why George Soros and other liberal donors have sunk fortunes into district attorney races across the country. They've gone after the prosecutors because the prosecutor decides who he or she charges and who he or she doesn't charge. That's an incredibly big power. And then on top of it, if you stack the courts like they have in D.C. with a bunch of left-wing activist judges for whom the law doesn't matter, the end result matters exclusively, you end up with a system that, by and large, puts Republicans in jail for pretty much everything and then gives Democrats a pass. Durham couldn't even get a conviction on one of his cases that he brought. Remember, special counsel Durham? We got one patsy went to trial in the District of Columbia. They tossed the case. The jury said, nothing here, even though it was completely straightforward. So does that mean, though, that we shouldn't file these cases, that we shouldn't proceed these cases? And absolutely, a resounding answer to this is hell no. We should proceed with every one of these prosecutions. It is the threat of prosecution. It is having to hire a lawyer, having to pay a retainer, having to go through the hell, get fingerprinted, get booked, have an arrest on your record. Maybe they'll think twice about doing it when they come to power. Back to Republicans. They started this. big time. You see Bush go after Clinton people. You see Clinton go after Bush people. I mean, all Clinton did was rip up, all the, W's in the White House when they left office before Bush came in. You see Obama go after Bush people, right? Trump go after any Obama people. He threatened to lock up Hillary Clinton and got into office. And literally, what did Trump do? He goes, "No, guys, we're moving on. This is not the right thing to do. We've got a country to fix." And instead of taking that olive branch, the Democrats went hog wild and tried to run Trump out of the presidency and then put him in jail and bankrupt him. So yeah, comeuppance, it's coming. All right, folks, Sam Mirejovsky on the What's Right Media Network. Sam Mirejovsky here. Welcome back, folks. Good to be with you. The What's Right Show brought to you by Sam & Ash Injury Law. I just got a client email, actually. A listener and a client who was hearing me talk about the firm last hour and wrote me, "Sam, I think you should also mention that you not only save your clients money, but that the care in treating the injuries are performed by top-notch professionals. The specialist that treated me was the best doctor I ever experienced in my life." Thank you, Bruce, for that. I appreciate that kind words. And that's absolutely true. Right? A lot of times you get hurt, you don't even know what doctor to go to. You don't want to go to the ER. You have to maybe for an emergency, but then what? At Sam & Ash Injury Law, we will help you get the doctors, the right doctors, the most helpful doctor, the right specialist. And even if you don't have health insurance, we can see to it that the coverage is provided through the insurance, through the case, and make sure you can go to the doctor up front so you don't have to wait for your settlement before you get treatment. It's a great point. 702-820-1234, Sam & Ash Injury Law, because you deserve what's right. Okay. It's not just, now I know we're talking about the lawfare, and the big update, of course, is that John Brennan, a central figure in the Trump, all the setup on Donald Trump, deep state strategery used against Trump. Brennan has been referred out for criminal prosecution for lying to Congress. So Jim Jordan sent that referral out. We'll see. Okay, we'll see what happens. Today, the Vice President, J.D. Vance, in Israel. And I get asked, I had this conversation with Alan this morning about the peace deal. The peace deal in Gaza, folks, is much, much bigger than just Gaza and Israel. I saw Cernovich today, Mike Cernovich, conservative commentator, great guy, Orange County guy in California. He put out their tweet, "Okay, enough of the Israel stuff. We got things to do domestically." And I get it. I get what he's trying to say. I understand. But if we can get the peace deal to stick in Israel, almost everything else internationally falls into place, particularly with, as Trump calls it, China. Have you noticed how upset the Chi-Coms have been since last Monday when the peace deal was announced? They have been delightfully exploiting this rising anti-Israel sentiment. I follow a couple of Chinese-affiliated propaganda accounts just to kind of get an idea of what the Chinese are up to. And they both are very, very... they're putting a lot of stuff out there about Israel, and they have been. And they're using it, right? They know that this weakens the West, that it weakens Europe, that it weakens... And so the minute that it got stitched up, the next thing that happened is China's belligerent trade negotiator, I mentioned this yesterday on here, got fired by President Xi. Because the minute that the peace deal was inked and in force in Israel, Trump turned around and goes, "Okay, China, you guys are next. Now I'm focusing entirely on you." And China's blinked. Now, why is this important for you and I? Well, of course, if we can right the trade deficit with China, it's a huge benefit to the U.S. economy. And it repositions our economy to be stronger for the working class and the middle class. So all of this is good. And did you notice that as soon as China blinked, the markets reacted to it too? I've seen the market go up the last few days. This all is good stuff, but there's so many different elements to it all working together. And so this is why, Trump didn't go himself. He sent J.D. Vance, keeping an eye on it, probably to deliver a message both to Hamas and to the Israelis to try to keep this thing on track. And it's exactly the right approach. So I have to push back on some of my conservative friends who say, oh, enough with Israel. It's really not about Israel. It's about shoring up these distracting conflicts in order to be able to strengthen our position vis-a-vis China and other more dangerous places. Now, I'm convinced, by the way, it's all about China when it comes to Ukraine. Trump wants to get peace in Ukraine, again, so that he can get, going back to Trump's pro-Russia policies, what the media calls it, Trump has always recognized that if he can bring Russia into orbit, into the Western orbit, he pulls them away from China. That was his policy with North Korea. China's if Trump can succeed to put China in a box again, the same way that he's putting, but maybe a little bit different, right, with Iran, but you isolate that one dangerous actor and you create a coalition that surrounds them and they can't make any moves. That's why he met with Rocket Man, why he went to North Korea. He basically wanted to say, hey, the U.S. is here to be friends with you, and we'd like your help when it comes to China, or at least not have your opposition when it comes to China. The Chicoms did not like it when Trump did this. So one thing that's important is you can't on one day, conservative commentators have this problem. In one moment, Trump is brilliant. He's doing everything right. And then they do something, then something happens that they don't like J.D. Vance visiting Israel. All of a sudden, what are they doing? Well, they shouldn't be doing this. And all hell breaks loose. Well, I'm just saying, there's rhyme and reason to what they're doing. Now, here's a story. I don't know if you saw this, but it just blows my mind. You see that there was a court decision in British Columbia, in the western province of Canada. This is the province where Vancouver is, okay? And it's British Columbia is a wealthy province in Canada for the most part. And their court decided, it's a case called coercion. And they determined that a swath of land in British Columbia actually is held by some Aboriginals, by some indigenous people. And they, by virtue of this finding, have declared that people's ownership, their fee simple ownership in land, is invalid and unjustified as an infringement on original property rights held by some native people. Read, Indians or whoever. Imagine for a moment, I just have to just put this in terms that you can understand. Imagine for a minute that you suddenly get a letter at your house. You've been paying your mortgage for the last 15 years. You've got 10 more years to go or 15 more years to go, and you've been paying property taxes, utilities, you've bought the house, you fixed up your house, you made improvements, and you get a letter from the government that tells you, hey, Sam, not so fast. Your house doesn't actually belong to you. This happened in Canada at the end of last week. Can you believe this? Now, remember when they're not as popular now. I hope not, at least. Maybe I hang out with fewer liberals. But Remember the land acknowledgements that were very much in vogue around 2000, 2001, sort of peak COVID years? Everybody was doing land acknowledgements, coming out of COVID, about before COVID too. So and I remember one of the first ones I experienced was here in Las Vegas going to UNLV. That's right. I went to some screening. I was new in town, and I basically, in that period of my life, I said yes to everything. So I went to the screening of a documentary that students had made. It was an interesting movie. But that's not the point. I'm sitting there in the amphitheater, and the wife and I are in the, I think it was the social sciences building, and we're sitting there, and some professor from UNLV gets up and starts giving, and I'd like to acknowledge that we're on stolen land, from the whatever Indians. And my wife, I swear my wife was starting to put her elbow into my ribs. Don't say anything, because I started to snicker. The reason these land acknowledgements aren't benign is because the left actually, in their perfect world, would love to use them to take your property away. We're going back to where we started our show today. Trump has raised funds, including his own money, to build a new ballroom adjacent to the East Room, the East Wing of the White House. It's an addition to the White House. And what is the first thing that the ladies on The View say? Their criticism, I played it for you last hour. Well, with all the suffering in the world, just feels like spending this money is just obscene. Even though it's Trump's money, even though the people that donated funds to build this, did so freely. It was their money. They earned it. And of course, what did I tell you in the moment? You own something, and the left will quickly tell you, not so fast. Hell, they're not even your kids, right? It takes a village to raise a child. Obama, laughing, basically mocking entrepreneurs who say that they built something. You didn't build it. You couldn't have built it if it wasn't for public roads, if it wasn't for the government. You idiots, you peasants, you whatever. You remember? He said this. The condescension that the left has for what you have earned, what you own, is dangerous, right? And it manifests in what's happening in Canada, where their rule of law is suspect, right? And they just tossed out their entire Land Title Act. They just threw it out the window, and all of a sudden you don't own it anymore. And it's a dream come true, because now they have a political reason for how to take away what you have. And when I call Democrats, particularly the Zohran Mandami Democrats, I call them communists, don't think that these people wouldn't want to do the same here. And just like they decide who to prosecute, these people would do what? These people, I know, they would decide whose property to take away. They wouldn't take away, a fellow Democratic Socialist house or apartment. But they'd show up at your house and my house and go, you're on native land, Sam. Time to turn it over. It's a real story, okay? It actually is happening in Canada. And if you listen to the left, they talk about Canada like the country they want the United States to be. How frightening is that? Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840, KXNT. All right, the government shutdown now going strong still since the 1st of October. So we're roughly 21 days in. And again, I stand by the fact that this is not going well for the Democrats. And there's no sign, I think, of Trump or the Republicans weakening. Sam Mirejovsky here, What's Right host, lawyer extraordinaire, and friend of the people behind the What's Right microphone, Mike Johnson, in a hallway in the Capitol, said Democrats don't even know what they're demanding. This is an important point. What is it that they actually want? Because every time the Republicans say, okay, we'll meet you on that stated goal, for example, helping American people not have their Obamacare rates go through the roof, providing a temporary rider to pay that, to cover that, the Democrats all balk, right? Here's what was said.
The president has nothing to offer them. There is literally no issue on the table. Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer himself cannot articulate for you what it is they're demanding. They don't even know. They have a difference of opinion among all the Democrats. AOC says we should go negotiate with her. She and Bernie are the real leaders of the party now, apparently, but none of them can articulate what they want. They're asking for a solution again to an end-of-the-year issue that wasn't even on the table yet, and they know it's going to take a lot of time to build consensus around. It's a political game, and real people are getting hurt, and we're frustrated.
Thank you.
Guys, make it pass.
Yeah, and, this is it. I see a lot of people saying, even people in politics, which they know better. Well, the Republicans are doing nothing. Republicans, and they talk about congressional House Republicans doing nothing. And I'm just over here going, I'm pulling my hair out. I'm like, congressional Republicans can't do any more or any less at this point. The bill is not in the House. The bill is in the Senate. Do these people understand how government works? So when you have Democratic congressmen, Democrats who are actually in office, in Congress, in the House, who know how this works because they work there, presumably, saying nonsense like this, you got to just think it's all, I don't even know. I mean, do they think we're stupid? Don't answer that. By the way, Wolf Blitzer, it's bad when the left loses. Wolf Blitzer not necessarily buying what the Democrats are selling here. Listen to this.
Senator, these health care subsidies, which are so important, are expiring at the end of this year because that's when Democrats controlled Congress and passed the Inflation Reduction Act. It included that specific expiration date. Democrats were also the key architects of Obamacare. Is this a crisis of your party's own making right now?
No, it's a crisis because the current leadership in Congress is not willing to step up and take care of working people.
What? This is empty, vapid. By the way, that was Senator Martin Heinrich, Democrat, New Mexico. Tim Kaine went on Meet the Press on Sunday. Tim Kaine, this is almost vice president of the UNS at one point in time, talks to Kristen Welker. And Welker actually brings up how Kaine once upon a time said that shutdowns aren't appropriate. Listen to this. Again, you got Wolf Blitzer and Kristen Welker challenging Democratic senators like, what the hell are you doing? You're completely off the mark.
Senator, back in 2019, you made a similar argument during that shutdown that Republicans are making now. Republicans at the time were asking for more funding for a border wall. You said, let's reopen the government first. I want to play a little bit of what you had to say.
We first should reopen government. Why punish people who are applying for food stamps because the president is having a temper tantrum? Open government first.
So, Senator, by your own logic, should Democrats not vote to reopen the government first and negotiate later?
Kristen, here's what's different now. The president told the Republicans to write this budget without any Democratic involvement.
Yeah, because the Republicans control the White House, the Senate, and the House of Representatives. And how is that any different? How is that different from the previous shutdown when he's arguing that everything should be reopened? And it was the inconsistency here. Now, look, I don't like the lying. The lying is what bothers me. If the Democrats came up and said, listen, we're holding you hostage. We know we lost the election. We know that, kind of on the outs right now, electorally speaking, but we have the power of the filibuster behind us. You didn't win 60 votes in the Senate. You only got 53 seats. So, ergo, we're going to use the filibuster power to be a muscular minority, and we're going to extract political concessions from you. We're just going to sit here until we do it. I'd almost kind of respect that, to be honest. I don't know, Robbie, you're scratching your head. What do you think? I mean, if they just came out and said, yeah, you're dead right, and you know what? But there's a sizable chunk of the country behind us, and to the American people, we are sorry that we have to do this, but this is what the Democratic Party stands for. We think everybody should have health insurance. We think that even the undocumented people should have health insurance because, and here's all the benefits. They should make their affirmative case to the American people why they're doing this and let the chips fall as they may. But it's the duplicity, it's the lying, it's the obfuscating, it's this. And the Democrats are too busy hating on Trump. Trump bad, Trump Hitler, Trump orange, fat Hitler, Trump fascist, whatever. They can't stand up there and say, this is what we are for, and this is why we are doing what we're doing. All right, I'll see you later, folks. Gotta run. Mark Levin up next. Sam Mirejovsky over and out.